Welcome to the course Digital Transformation and Technological Innovation. So, today we will be starting our third module, that is transitions in software markets, and I hope that what we learned in previous two modules, that is fundamentals of information systems and digital infrastructure, will help us do this kind of discussion. So, let us start. So, first we will talk about the economics of software, right. Now, economics of software is significantly different from traditional products or physical products, right. So, what we will do a bit of comparison between software product versus physical product, and this comparison would actually be focused on this important aspect of economics, that is marginal cost, right. So, when we talk about a physical product, right, essentially it is going to be assembled or manufactured from raw materials or different components that are part of it, right. Now, what is marginal cost here? So, marginal cost is cost linked to each unit produced, right. So, let us say we talk about a furniture and a new unit of furniture is to be produced. So, the cost that will go into producing that new unit of furniture, essentially we are referring to that as a marginal cost. So, we come back to the physical product. A marginal cost is incurred to produce a new unit of the product. So, whenever let us say we have produced 100 units, now for the 100 first unit again we will have to incur a marginal cost, because 100 first unit would be a new additional unit and this marginal cost is not going away. So, that would be incurred in producing. So, any kind of physical product that we can think of, this applies. Any new unit that we want to produce, marginal cost would be incurred, right. So, this is the scenario of a physical product or traditional product. Now, when we come to the software product, there is no such thing, right. So, in software product, once you have developed your software program, that developed your software product, right, you can duplicate it, right. So, there is no requirement for additional input. Once a copy is produced or once first copy of the software product is produced, you do not incur a marginal cost to produce a new copy of it, right. So, if you want to produce a new copy of it, there is no marginal cost that you incur. So, marginal cost to produce a new copy of the software product is effectively 0, right. Why? Because whatever we do in the digital world, it can be duplicated, simply copy and paste kind of scenario we are talking about. So, therefore, any additional unit, there is no cost, no marginal cost that is incurred. So, that is effectively 0, right, because there are no raw materials, nothing is is to be consumed, right. So, here obviously when we talk about a software program, essentially the instructions of the program, they would be written on a hardware, right, zeros and ones. So, those things we have already spoken about, right. So, duplication is pretty much coming with almost no cost, right. So, this particular aspect, that there are no marginal cost, has a defining impact on the economics of software, right. So, the revenue streams work very different from traditional product. So, in traditional product you will have inventory and then you will like to have your distribution network, retail network, there would be sales or field people who will be going out, or maybe within the stores they will be helping customers with the sales and all that, right. So, the whole revenue streams work very differently in case of traditional product. But when we talk about the software product, the defining impact of 0 marginal cost makes the revenue stream work very different. So, let us talk about that a bit more. So, what is this defining impact we are talking? So, tech firms with a successful software product generate a rapid and rich revenue stream. Why? Because if you want to sell 100 copies of a software, you do not incur any additional cost, you just duplicate that software and keep selling it to 100 those customers or clients, right. So, therefore, once a tech firm has been able to come up with a successful software product, the revenue automatically comes. They just need to find a customer or client whom they can sell their software to. So, tech firms with a successful software product generate a rapid and rich revenue stream, right. So, in case of a physical product, you come up with a furniture, you cannot do you cannot generate revenue very quickly. You'll have to for every new unit of the furniture you'll have to again get the raw materials and assemble it back to that furniture form, right. But when it comes to software, it's just the duplication of the software, and therefore very quickly if you are able to find customers who are willing to buy, consumers who are willing to buy, right, then you can quickly figure out a rapid and rich revenue stream. So essentially the point is that revenue streams work very different from traditional products, right. So once a successful software product has been developed, you might become a one of the top firm in the software and in the software industry or the IT industry in general, and then because of the amount of revenue and all that you might amass, you might start figuring in the top firms in general, right. So this is a very defining impact. So let's take an example, Microsoft. So now Microsoft, they were able to come up with Office and Windows. So Office is the application software and Windows is the system software. So once Microsoft was able to come up with these successful software, one Office, Microsoft Office application software and the Windows system software, then became quite easy for them to generate or maintain their revenue streams from Microsoft Office or Microsoft Windows. So if we look at these statistics, Microsoft generated approximately $12 billion a month, right. Generated approximately $12 billion a month from its Office and Windows businesses alone in 2025, right. And what they have to do for this? Just duplicate whatever they already have, whatever is already selling, the latest version of the Microsoft Office or latest version of Windows, right. Whenever you would feel that almost, if you feel that almost all the market is captured, all the computers have already bought or installed the licensed version of Microsoft Office or Windows, the Microsoft can come up with a new version of Microsoft Office and Windows, and therefore because of the advanced feature or new features that might be there, they will again make the sale happen to the same set of people, right. So new versions come and again you do the selling. Another reason why that works along with the new features that might come in the new versions of Microsoft Office or Windows is that support for older versions would eventually be withdrawn, right. For a number of years they will give support, and then for older versions support will not be given. So that applies to any other, not just Microsoft, any other software company or any other software in general, right. New versions come, support for older versions is taken away, and the customers consumers, they will have to go for the new versions. So therefore what is happening from the IT firm side? Duplication of the software or new versions of the software, right. So in producing new versions of the software, obviously there is effort, there is a cost that is incurred, but in case of the same version selling to thousands of customers or clients, it's just the duplication, right. So in the software industry, the economics of software works very differently in comparison to what we see in traditional product case or traditional industries, right, which are actually constrained by the economics of demand and supply, capacity constraints, and so many other things. That is something that is covered under economics courses, right. So here, coming back to the economics of software, very different from traditional product, right. One might feel, okay, sometimes you might need a computer and software for certain activities or the process, but now that has also changed, right. If we look at the economics of software, software now powers or drives everything. So almost everything that we see, that is being driven by software. For example, we can look at the complex function like appliances, ACs, refrigerators, many other appliances, thermostats, smart thermostats, many other things, weapon systems, right. Scientific discovery, there are so many software which are needed to analyze the data or do the design work or any other art work, right, or the computational work or the analysis work, right. So all that is supported by software, right. Appliances, day-to-day label, healthcare, so many devices, all of them are being powered or driven by software. Weapon systems, for targeted or precision strikes, right, they are also controlled by software, right. So therefore everything, pretty much everything that we can think of is being powered or driven by software. We look at the routine function. So this is like complex function that we can talk about the scientific discovery or weapon or appliances. But if we look at the routine function, for example media consumption, right. So media consumption, that is also nowadays we go to YouTube, Spotify and other so many other apps, social media, and then there are so many OTT apps. So we have moved away from TV as the main medium of media consumption to computing devices and the apps or the software that are running there. We are using them for our media consumption, right. So even the routine functions are being powered by software or driven by software. Similarly, mundane function, if we can think of taxi driving, right. So that is also being supported by software, or in case self-driving cars or autonomous cars, right. So that is also in a way powered by AI, which is a software. Ordering, nowadays we order items for our day-to-day needs or other occasional needs. So online ordering, so many apps in e-commerce field, all that is software. Ticket booking, now we don't queue in line and stand for hours or whatever time it takes. We rather book beforehand through online booking apps, right, whether it's about flight or movie or entertainment or any other cricket or any other sports event, right. So we do online booking, right. So essentially you will see overall all walks of life, whether we talk about the complex function or the routine function or the mundane function, everything is being powered by the software. Therefore the opportunities for IT firms or software firms to make money have multiplied, and already we talked about the economics as such, duplication, right. So revenue streams work very fast. So there's so many software companies are becoming very rich because of the way economics work in this case, right. Now benefits of being a leading product offer, right. So in one's own category, right. So if we compare this to traditional industries, so there would be so many firms which are leading in their own category in traditional industries, but the kind of benefits that you get when you are leading a product offer in software industry or IT industry in general, that is very different. Those benefits are much higher than what we see in traditional industries, right. So one of the best benefits that we get in case of software compared to other industries, if you become a leading if you become a leading software product, if you have as a firm a leading software product in its own category, then that will pay you off much better than what a leading product will do in a traditional industry, right. So tech firms, so because of that what happens, so that means there are there are too much of gains in terms of being a leader in a software market in any category, so there is too much at stake to compete in a software market in any category. So what happens then, because of that fierce competition happens. Tech firms, they compete very hard in software markets or software powered markets. So any software driven markets or the software markets, right, tech firms compete very hard, because once they become a leading once they become the leading company or have a leading product offer, then the kind of gains that they will get would be very significantly larger. So therefore there is a fierce competition that takes place, right. So therefore software markets we typically see are characterized by winner take all or winner take most dynamics. That means whosoever is the winner, so the IT firm that is winner in a particular software product category or particular computer hardware or in general IT product category, they might be in a position to take it all, the whole market, winner take all the whole market, or winner take the most of it. For example, Microsoft have been able to capture the PC operating system space more than 90%, right, especially in countries like India and many other countries, right. In some other countries in recent years, Mac has also gone up to a significant percentage, but still globally we see PC operating system market, Microsoft is winner take most, or we can even say that winner take all kind of dynamics characterized there, right. Same we can think about in many other categories. If we talk about the smartphone operating system space, generic smartphones is the Android which takes it all, right. Then iPhone is there, right, and iOS is there, and but that becomes a niche segment, slightly higher end segment. But for a generic smartphone, that also goes up to the higher end segment as well. Android is taking pretty much the whole market. So in the case of software, we see it quite commonly the case that winner takes all. Similarly, we can see that in terms of video services, online video portals, YouTube takes pretty much the whole thing. Similarly, search engine, Google is there, and then similarly social media, Facebook is there. So this dynamics, the economics is very different, and therefore there is a very fierce competition that takes place because of this economics. Because there is pretty much the whole thing at stake. So if you happen to be in a particular software category, then you stand to gain a lot, almost all of it. So now, while we talked about the economics of market and how it could be so profitable or revenue generating activity, and so much different from traditional industries, and why firms would like to be a tech company than a traditional company. So all that we just talked about, but then there are challenges in the software market, right. So things can get complex. Now what are these challenges? So these challenges we discuss in the form of transitions that have happened in the software markets over the years, right. So we analyze transitions in software markets over the decades, and these transitions simultaneously exist to survive, right, and we will discuss them one by one. So what is the first challenging transition that software markets have seen? So first one is open source software offerings. So once it was very clear, this happened in the 1980s itself, that the winner takes all, right. Microsoft was there, Apple was there, so IBM was there, so many other companies, right, and they became very high revenue generating firms, top firms across the board, right. So therefore access to software, you'll have to pay a lot, right. So then open source software category that came up. So it was mainly driven by software developers who wanted to obviously give an alternative to commercial software offerings, but at the same time they were also motivated to write better code, right. So different motivation worked, and open source software community came about, and it became an alternative to commercial software. Now here's the thing that is very different and again peculiar to software industry, is that open source software is actually a free alternative. So you will not see in a traditional industry any product being given away for free, right. So there is a cost attached to any physical product, and even if there are discounts or other things that are running, but still some cost, some price has to be paid, right, because the cost will still there. But despite so many people contributing and therefore there is a cost to it, open source software community, whatever product that they could come up with, all of them are free alternatives, right. So they are free alternatives to commercial product offering, right. And then open sharing of the program source code, right. So it's not just the software, they also release the source code so that anyone can open that and customize as needed. That means the hard work of all the software engineers or software developers contributing to an open source software product, all that given away for free with source code shared, and everyone allowed to customize as needed. So this became a challenge for existing software firms like Microsoft and many others, that while they are selling commercial proprietary commercial offerings, right, where the customers have to pay a lot and they have to pay per copy. So there is licensing, right, and here products start to coming being offered as free. So, if there is a product, competitive product, good quality, and it is an open source product, then why would people go for a commercial offering? They will just go for the free alternative, especially if it is a high quality product. So, therefore, open source software community or OSS community, it created the first challenge in the software market, right. So, that we are referring as a first challenging transition, right. Now, this was a direct challenge, as we talked about, to the advantages cultivated by tech leaders. IBM, HP, Sun, Microsoft, Apple, all these firms were there in the 1980s and 90s. So, for many years they have been cultivating all this advantage, the economics of software that we talked about, and there was a direct challenge because there is a competitive product, maybe better quality is being given away by free. So, why better quality? We will talk about that later, right. Now, the question that was faced by these tech leaders was how to compete with free. Something is being given for free. Now, how do you compute that? And then what would be the motivation that would be left to innovate, to come up with their new software product, right. Because there can be an open source alternative which would be given up for free, and therefore, all the hard work that you might put in a new software product, in an innovative software product, you might not be able to make money out of it, right. So, how do you feel innovation for free? How do you compete with the free? So, these were the challenges that were faced by the tech leaders. So, obviously, there is not like the open source software products and the community in general, but later things changed, right. So, we will talk about that. Now, open source software offerings, they actually as we talked about, stand in contrast to traditional tech firms practices, right. So, traditional tech firms, what they do, they guard their intellectual property secrets. There is a licensing for each copy of the software, and they guard their intellectual property, right, because there is so much of work that has gone in development of a software product, right. So, this is one difference that is there, while in case of OSS the source code is given for free, right. So, there is no guarding of intellectual property in OSS, but in case of a proprietary commercial offering, that is the case. Never open the source code. So, traditional tech firms with the commercial software product offerings, they never open the source code, because they perceive threat to their business model, because if they open the source code, anybody can make certain changes, create a new intellectual property, and then threaten their business model, the way they are making money. So, obviously, it makes sense for them to not open the source code, right. Now, while this was going on, why tech leaders, they were facing the challenge, direct challenge from the first transition, right, from the OSS community, right. But it obviously it takes time for OSS community to also come up with so many different products catering to different categories. So, obviously, there would be so many so many gaps in the market will still be there for the tech leaders. But more importantly, even if a OSS community is giving their products for free, the product itself is so complex that it cannot be easily consumed by a regular or non-tech user, right. So, a non-tech firm or non-tech user cannot easily consume that open source software, and therefore, the commercial offering will still sell, because there is a support, there is an ongoing support that would be provided by the firm, and it is generally tends to be commercial offerings tend to be more easier to use, right, and then there is ongoing support and everything. So, because of that, the commercial products they still were sold, those companies remain the top firms. At the same time, new companies came up which started providing services and support on top of OSS products. So, while they were giving the OSS products for free and the code and everything, but because the product are themselves are quite complex and non-tech users cannot easily consume them for their advantage. So, therefore, OSS vendors will come and provide the support in terms of installation, customization, and ongoing support, right. So, OSS vendors came up, new firms came up which were essentially OSS vendors, and they also started making money by providing support and customization and IT services in general. Now, so this is how first challenging transition was met. We'll discuss few more points in coming slides. Now we move to the second challenging transition. So what was the second challenging transition? So it came about late 2000s, right? So that was cloud computing services, right? So internet started in the early 1990s, and slowly the speed improved, more people had computers, access increased. Then there were smartphones at the end of 2000s, and then more people could access internet and all that. Now when the internet speed improved, because there were so many internet users, and therefore the infrastructure of internet, the companies, telecommunication provider or ISPs, they could expand their business, they could be more profitable. So infrastructure improved, so the internet speed improved, and people could access content from internet. They could interact with different websites, servers, different web services, right. So all this materialized into what we are calling as cloud computing services. So cloud computing services, because many of the big tech firms like Amazon, Microsoft and Google, they had to run their internet services, right, whether e-commerce or search engine or YouTube or any other thing. So to be able to run those websites, right, they had to amass lots of servers, lots of computing power, big data centers. Now not all that computing was was fully utilized by these firms themselves, right, while it was needed to be able to support the peak traffic and give better experience to the users, but not all of the computing was used. So while internet speed improved, so that option opened up, can they allow users to take advantage of that unutilized computing that companies like Amazon, Google or Microsoft had, right. So therefore that got materialized. Mainly Amazon was the first mover. So Amazon could convert that into cloud computing services, the big data centers, unutilized computing that they had due to running their own e-commerce websites and other services. They could use that to convert into cloud computing services, which we now know as AWS, right, Amazon Web Services. So now cloud computing services, they eventually became alternative to on-prem computing resources. So companies which needed computing, non-tech or tech firms, they'll have to run their data centers, and therefore on premises they'll have to manage their data center, servers, cooling, networking and all those things that we have earlier talked about, right. So now cloud computing became alternative. So on-prem computing resources, whether we talk about the hardware or software, whatever you need, right. Now essentially what happened, now computing started moving away from on-prem to the cloud vendor's data center, because any non-tech firm which is having tech only for the support will not be interested in running on-prem data centers, computing, managing, because that is not their core capability, right. Therefore they will feel to they will be tempted to focus more on their core business and take support from cloud vendors which are big techs, and they know how to manage these computers and data centers. So they'll feel benefited by moving their computing need to the cloud vendors data center, because they don't have to manage the computer, the upgrades, whether the hardware or the software or the networking and all those things that are there. While at the same time cloud computing vendor is already doing that, and that vendor might get advantage of a scale because of serving to or giving cloud services to lots of clients, lots of customers. So the prices might go down, and therefore cost to use that computing for non-tech firms will also go down. So there is cost that will go down if the companies move from on-prem computing to cloud computing, right. And that is how this model, cloud computing model, kicked off, right. So it caters to both enterprise and single users, right. For example, Google Drive and Gmail and all that, the free storage that we get with our Gmail and Google Drive. So that is catering to single users, Then we talk about the Amazon, Microsoft, they are catering more to the enterprise, right. So cloud computing services were another transitions where tech and non-tech firms started moving their computing to the cloud, right, and the whole economics of the IT industry changed because of that. Now what started happening in this second challenging transition, that is cloud computing, is that you could, as a non-tech firm, you could subscribe to cloud services provided over the internet from whatever plans that are offered by vendors, right. So essentially whatever you are consuming, you might have to just pay for that based on the plans, right. Obviously within the plans also you might have some unutilized consumption, but those are the plans that are being offered, and but still you can subscribe, and depending on the kind of consumption that you are having, you can optimize, right. So essentially we can say it's like usage based kind of pricing or usage based kind of model that came about, right. So essentially the benefit is that while you are paying only for what you are using, because the cloud vendor would anyway gain, because they would be providing the same services to so many other clients using the same data center, right. So but the non-tech firms will gain because of that. They use, if they were using low amount of computing when they had on-prem data center, right, to now they move to cloud, so that amount of computing is lower, so they might end up paying much less than what they were doing when they were maintaining their own data centers on-prem, right. So they would be free from the burden of buying, so they'll have to manage a IT department who would be involved into buying, managing, maintaining the computing resources. So essentially lots of non-tech firms would benefit or would like to be free from this burden of running IT departments, running data centers, buying, managing and maintaining computing resources, because their core business is something else, right, and they would just happily take the services of cloud computing, right. So who are these major cloud vendors? So these are the same firm. So these are providing the cloud infrastructure. So widely used cloud infrastructure, that whether it's about single user or the enterprise, these are the main companies. So we have already spoken about this in our digital infrastructure module. So Amazon, Microsoft, Google, these are the companies which are mainly catering to these cloud computing services. Now moving on, what are the challenges that software market faced? So the third challenging transition, what was that about? So third challenging transition came because of the app stores and the ecosystem. So we talked about that cloud computing came about, and then there were smartphones, and then smartphones the kind of integration that happens at the hardware level in case of a smartphone, that we have already spoken about. So because of that there are app stores, and apps can be downloaded, installed from there, and the whole cost to find a software, relevant software, search and transaction cost, that got changed because of these app stores, and there were whole ecosystem that got created through these app stores. So let's talk about that. So these provided an alternative to the notion of software products and packages. So we have earlier spoken about software products and packages in previous module, right. So one has to get a software product either by downloading the from the vendor's website, or in a CD, DVD or USB, and then install that in our PC system, right. So all that changes because of the two things, smartphone and the app store, right. So application sourcing changes significantly, and it goes to the OS designated app store. So you don't have to find the website of the vendor, you don't have to maintain a CD or DVD or USB for the software. You just go to the OS designated. There is another app which is an app store which is installed in the same device, whether we talk about the smartphone or nowadays even in the notebooks, right. So there are OS designated app store. For example, Android is Play Store, iOS there is App Store, and then similarly for the Microsoft, for Windows, Microsoft Store, right. So application sourcing now moved from downloading to CD, DVDs, USBs to these apps. Just search the app and then download it, right. So instant access to apps by end users across the globe, right. So when end users are maintaining CD, DVDs or USBs, they'll have to do that individually. So there's a lot more duplication or inefficiencies that will happen because of that process, which was there for software products and packages traditional process, right. But in case of App Store, everybody just downloads the software from the same place, right. So instant access and then overall efficiency comes in if we consider the whole mass of end users, right. Now moving on, a few more points about app stores and ecosystem. App stores led to near zero search and transaction cost, because the app is is already installed, and you go and search and you get it there, install it immediately like in an instant. So you don't have to go through the process of finding where to find a relevant software. You do Google search, internet search, and then see whether there is a internet download option or not, and then see what is the other option, CD, DVD, or you'll have to go to a local store to buy it, right. So all those things, so search transaction cost will go up because of that. All that is taken away by the App Store. So near zero search and transaction cost of finding a popular or relevant app. So that was a big change. But it also makes a change that App Store becomes popular. Now anyone who is looking for a relevant or popular app, they'll go to that App Store. So because of that, everybody is going to that App Store. The App Store gets power because of serving to a mass user base, right. So we'll talk about that power later on. But how the App Store and ecosystem change the whole dynamics here, we can understand that from the near zero search and transaction cost that came about because of this. Now another important aspect is trust mechanism. So when pre App Store era, when you are downloading a software from internet, you might end up logging into a compromised website, and therefore your system might get compromised because of the virus or other attacks that can happen. But that is also taken away. So there is an added trust mechanism, because the whole governance of those apps is being done by app stores, which are from the company which is running the operating system, whether it's Google in case of Play Store on Android devices, it's Apple in case of Apple devices via App Store, or Microsoft in case of Windows and Microsoft Store, right. So these are governing these companies and their apps. They are governing the App Store. There are end users ratings and reviews, so you can see those ratings and reviews to understand how useful that app has been to other users, and their reviews, positive, negative. So essentially there are lots of trust mechanisms that also comes in, right. So that further improves the efficiency. So you are searching a app in a store and you see a good rating, more likely you just go ahead and install it, right. But while you are looking for a particular software in the pre-App Store era, you will have to check so many things so that your computer or computing device isn't compromised, and obviously the search and transaction cost, right. So the App Store and ecosystem overall changed so many things. Moving on with few more points. Now what happened as a consequence, that App Store became a catalytic ecosystem for the birth of several innovative, successful app driven businesses, right. Because now suddenly if a company in the pre App Store era, if they come up with a very good high quality software product, right, it will take them years to be able to reach to the users, get word of mouth going, and get that perception about their software going, while their competitors are also there, and they can take advantage of that time while you are building your brand for your software product. They can quickly come up with alternative versions, and those are big companies. They will start selling their product, and all that effort that you put in popularizing that particular software product or that category, that will be taken away by the big firms, right. Now this scenario got suddenly changed because of the App Store, because you can get to you can get access to the whole user base, in one go, right. You just have to publish your app in the App Store. So obviously the companies which are running the App Store, they'll have their own revenue or sharing model, right. But then it is better to it is better than pre-App Store era, where the whole product or whole the firm will not survive, might not survive rather. So App Store, because now the companies, new startups or new engineers who were trying to come up with new software products, new apps, they got this catalytic ecosystem where quickly they can publish their innovative successful app, right, and become successful. Their innovative app can be quickly installed by lots of users. There would be reviews and ratings, and therefore that app will go up in the charts and more people will use that, and therefore more startups would be willing to invest their efforts into coming up with a very successful app which will be liked by the end users, right. So therefore app stores became catalytic ecosystem. So app ecosystem and therefore app economy got started because of this particular transition. So defining impact, what was the defining impact here? Significantly changed the underlying economics and possibilities of the software industry, right. So any new startup can quickly become very popular because of these app store, and that's what happened with WhatsApp, Instagram and many other similar apps. Obviously some of these were acquired by the big tech firms, but then these big tech had to pay a lot for that acquisition, right. There are lots of firms which quickly became popular, and they are just app. That means few software developers, a small team of software developers can come up with these apps which are well received by the end users, get good ratings and all that, and then sometimes acquired by the big tech firms. So the whole dynamics changed, the whole impact changed because of the app stores and the ecosystem. Software industry, the way it used to operate before app store and after it got totally changed. Now before we end, what we'll do a quick recap of what we discussed in this session. So I'll go back, right. So we talked about economics of software. We understood how software products are different from physical product, right. We talked about how physical product, they need to be assembled or manufactured, raw material involved. We understood the marginal cost, understood that marginal cost is to be incurred for any new unit in case of physical product, while in case of software product, that is not the case. You can quickly, once you write a software, you can duplicate it and sell to as many people as you want, and therefore the revenue stream become very different in comparison to traditional product. So we understood that, and then because of that many companies would like to be in the IT industry, in software firm, because the kind of quick or rapid revenue that they can generate. One example, one statistics we took from the Microsoft Office and Windows to make this point. Then we also talked about how software has not just been limited to few products, few categories. Now it is powering pretty much everything from complex function, appliances, weapon system, to routine functions like media consumption that we do via our smartphone apps day in day out. Then mundane function like whether we have to book something, order something, book a taxi, book a ticket, right, order items online or e-commerce. So that everything is being powered by software. So therefore more firms and more opportunities in this industry, right. So we also talked about how if you become a leader in the software industry, the stakes are very high, so there is a very fierce competition. So want to be a leader in a software industry, so winner take all, winner take most kind of dynamics are operating, and therefore if you happen to be a winner, then there is so much to be gained, right. So fierce competition. Then we talked about different transitions that happened. First, open source software offerings which were free, they threatened the commercial product offerings. We talked about how tech leaders, they survived because software anyway is complex. So again, non-tech users cannot quickly, just because it's free, they cannot readily use it, right? So support is needed, right? Services are needed, right? So OSS vendors came about, software companies continued to make money. Then second challenging transition was cloud computing. We talked about how computing for non-tech firms especially could move from on-prem to cloud, and therefore they don't have to worry about any managing IT department, buying, maintaining and all that. Just whatever computing you're using, just pay for that. So usage based mechanism came about. Some cloud vendors we talked about. Then we discussed the third challenging transition, app store and ecosystem, and how pre-app store era transaction and search costs got plummeted because of the app store and instant access to pretty much all end users across the globe. That helped many startups to come up with new innovative software product, right? And trust mechanisms are already there, right? So the whole ecosystem got created, which quickly you could become a top firm just by managing a small team and coming up with a innovative app, right? So we talked about, for example, like WhatsApp and Instagram. So this also significantly changed the whole dynamics of the software market. So that was about all the transitions, in the important transitions, so to say, in software markets. Now we'll continue this discussion in the next session. Thank you.